Hi viewers, this is Dr. Muhammad Iftikhar Aslam from Pakistan. Today I'm going to present my lecture on botulism, which is a bacterial disease. In today's lecture, we will cover the information regarding the organism that causes botulism and its epidemiology. We will also talk about the history of the disease, how it is transmitted, species that it affects, and the clinical and necropsy signs observed. Finally, we'll address the prevention and control measures for botulism. After germination, the clostridial spores release neurotoxins. There are 7 antigenic types of neurotoxins classified as A to G. Typically, the different neurotoxins types affect different species. Only a few nanograms of these toxins can cause severe illness. All cause flaccid paralysis in the species affected. Toxins is produced in improperly processed canned, low acidic or alkaline foods and in the pasteurized and lightly cured foods held without refrigeration, especially in airtight packaging. The toxin can be destroyed heat or by cooking food at 80 degrees Celsius for 30 minutes. However, the inactivation of spores requires a much higher temperature. The foodborne botulism occurs when the performed neurotoxin is ingested. The most common source of the performed toxin is contaminated food, usually from improperly home canned vegetables or fermented fish. 50% of the foodborne outbreaks in the United States of America are caused by type A toxins of this bacteria. The most commonly isolated neurotoxin is type A for the canned foods and type E for the improperly fermented fish products. The botulism transmission typically occurs through the ingestion of the organism's neurotoxin or spores. If the organism is ingested, it then incubates in the stomach and the produce spores which then germinate to release the neurotoxins. If the spores are ingested, the germination follows and the neurotoxins is released. Finally, if spores have germinated within the contaminated food, the neurotoxins itself is ingested, causing the rapid progression of the disease. No instance of the secondary person-to-person transmission has been documented. Botulism affects animal species such as cattle, sheep, horses, wild birds, and poultry. The mink and ferrets also are affected by this bacterial disease. The dogs and pigs can also be affected. However, they seem to be more resistant to the disease. Therefore, the cases are much more uncommon compared to the previously mentioned species. Until now, there's no natural cases have been documented in cats. In cattle and sheep, the disease is usually caused by the ingestion of neurotoxin in contaminated feed stuff. Most cattle cases involve type B, C, and D toxins, while most sheep cases involve the type C toxins. The incubation period is 24 hours to 7 days. Common sources of toxins include improperly stored silage or spoiled beer. The silage incorporations, poultry litter, or poultry products can also be source of botulism toxins. Cattle with phosphorus deficiencies can obtain the toxins via the ingestion of the soil while enacting pica. Finally, carcasses unintentionally build on into the hay or chopped into hay cubes or pellets may potentially contribute to the botulisms in ruminants. Clinical signs in ruminants include progressive ascending ataxia from the hind limbs to the forelimbs, Animals are usually recumbent, and the cattle will turn their heads into the flanks. The signs of cranial nerve dysfunction are present, such as dysphagia, drooling, tongue paresis, and facial muscles paresis. Eye effects includes a decreased pupillary light reflex, ptosis, and mydriasis. Additionally, the rumen stasis and blot can occur, as well as an atonic bladder with loss of urination. The botulism infection in avian species is commonly referred to as limber neck disease. The most common neurotoxin type found in the birds is type C for the waterfowl and the shorebirds, especially ducks in the western United States of America, and poultry. Type E neurotoxins affect gulls and loons. Thousands of birds may die during a single outbreak. Botulism toxins can be common in the gut of the poultry and the wild birds, as well as the litter, feed, and the water of the chickens. The horses, especially foals, are highly sensitive to the botulism toxins. The most common toxins in equines are type B and C toxins. The incubation period in equines is 24 hours to 7 days. In horses, the most common sources of botulism occurs from the contaminated feed or infection by the organisms in open wounds. The clinical signs can provide a tentative diagnosis for the botulism intoxications. The definitive diagnosis in animals involves identifying toxins in serum, stool, gastric aspirate, or, if available, the suspected food. The feces are usually the most reliable clinical samples in the foodborne or infant botulisms. Electromyography or EMG can also be diagnostic. The most widely used and sensitive test for detecting botulism toxins is mouse neutralization test. It is estimated that a point source of aerosol release of botulism toxins could incapacitate or kill the 10% of the animals within the 0.5 kilometers downwind. However, the CDC maintains a well-established surveillance system for reporting the botulism cases that would promptly detect such an event. Well, that's the end of our today's lecture. Thank you so much.